Good morning, everybody. Oh, what a crazy week this has been. Sorry for starting late. I had some connection issues going on, but everything's solved again. Um, yeah, I wanted to talk today about our failing president and over the last week or so, how we've seen him just become this total embarrassment to the United States, especially on the world stage at the G7 summit and all of the world leaders, different ones, the prime minister of Italy, different ones that were helping him, turn him back around, get him refocused on what was happening. It was as if he was a child in the midst of all of these adults. And just numerous things that were going on. And then after a 2 or 3 week absence, they have a press conference at the White House, and Little Miss Sunshine decides to say that all of those videos and all of those things that are out there about Biden are like made up, like they're altered. They're and it's like how could they even say this sort of a thing? People are watching in real time on the news when these things are happening, and they've come from multiple sources. The same video. It's not like somebody could change it or alter it and then get it out worldwide to everybody, so that's the same video that gets out. A lot of people wouldn't do that anyway if there was an altered video of him. So it just goes to prove to you the lengths that they'll go to lie, number one, to the American people, and two, how they'll lie about the condition of our president and try and fool the American people into thinking that he is a man in total control of himself, and he's not. He's not even there half the time. I was watching something the other day where who was it? Oh, it was Mark Levin on Sunday night, and he was going down a list of signs of dementia, the six stages of dementia or whatever, or 7 stages. And yeah, because he was saying by the time he got done reading number 5, he was saying he's definitely in stage 5. And Mark was saying, I don't think he's in 6 or 7, but it was pretty interesting. Stages of dementia. Let me pull it up because let me see. What are the stages of dementia? Here it is. I'll share this with you so that you can see. And it sheds some light on really what our president, where he is and what's going on. So the first stage, the stages are as follows. No cognitive decline. That was 1. 2, very mild cognitive decline. Number 3, mild cognitive decline. 4, moderate. And 5, moderately severe. And 6 and 7 are severe and very severe. But the cognitive, let's go into number 3, mild cognitive. The third stage, getting lost while walking or driving, particularly in unfamiliar places, reading something and retaining very little of it, forgetting the names of people they've just met, losing items of importance or value, having trouble concentrating and performing complex tasks, experiencing increasing difficulty in social settings, frequently forgetting words in the name of loved ones, performing poorly at work to the extent that it becomes evident to colleagues. Well, all of that stuff, Stage 4 is lack of knowledge of current and recent events, difficulty remembering parts of their own personal history. We've seen that, right? Number 5 would be difficulty recalling an important detail, such as your address, phone number, or high school. Disorientation in terms of places and times, such as confusion regarding the season, date, day of the week, or time of the day. Difficulty counting backwards, trouble making decisions. So Mark Levin really feels that he's at stage 5, and I kind of agree with him. But definitely number 4. So we're all witnessing the president of the United States in front of our eyes, and obviously experiencing some of these sort of things. And obviously it's dementia, some other age-related issue. He is like a child. I mean, it really stuck with me at the D-Day celebration, the D-Day memorial, rather. And when all the world leaders were standing around and they were explaining us, the guy had parachuted out of the sky, and they were undoing his parachute and whatnot, how Biden could just turn around and then just waddle off, no facial expression, nothing, just like a child distracted by something, and would walk over there. And then for another adult to turn around and grab his arm, like, oh, come over here. She tried to make it less conspicuous and act like, oh, come over here. He's telling us about it. It's a total embarrassment. And now to hear afterwards what a lot of these world leaders are saying, that he's worse off than they thought. They've never seen him this bad. What an embarrassment. All of these things that are being said. And then you've got little Miss, White House press conference comes out and says, oh, there's nothing wrong with them. And these videos are all made up. They're all altered. This is what the Republicans do to you. This is what they want you to think of your president. It's beyond the time for lying and making up stories about things. It's time to be truthful to the American people. They've been so untruthful in the past and trying to sway us and convince us to vote for somebody or something that isn't what as it appears. I think, honestly, after watching Obama on stage with him, honestly, I think that they regret putting Joe in that position, because he's not able to carry out the 8 years, right? The 8 years that they need, that Obama needed. And I reposted on Facebook. I wonder if I can pull it up. But I just wonder if they are really, really, really regretting putting him into that position, because it just doesn't make any sense why you would have somebody like that leading the country. But so, and in that matter, we all know something funky went on in the election for sure. But let me see. I'm trying to get to my Facebook account because I want to show you. That's not it. Here it is. All right, hold on. I'm going to stop this. All right, so, oh, dang it. I don't know if I can share from another. Let me see. Because it's yeah, here it is. Okay.
And I used to say, you know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. Wow. I'd be fine. People would ask me, knowing what you know now, do you wish?
What Obama said, when asked if he would have wanted a third term. And then, you know, in the split screen, it's showing him helping Biden off the, Biden, that's a good word, helping Biden off the stage. And the White House spokesgirlie was trying to say, allergies again, that they're very good friends and it was just a friendly moment. No, he was actually turning around and grabbing the old man's hand and pulling on it, saying, come on, it's time to go, because Joe's just standing there again. You know, it's so embarrassing. And how the Democrats can't see this is beyond me. To watch Italian TV do these parody skits about the president of the United States stumbling up to a podium, you know, falling on stairs. It's like comedy in our foreign countries, and it's all about the president of the United States. That is what we've become, folks, under this leadership, the laughing stock of the world. And they put them on display like they don't even care. And then, of course, coming off of the G7 trip, he was so exhausted and so mentally skewed that they had to send Kamala Harris over, working on a Ukrainian deal. You know, that's just great. You know, anything anybody says that she doesn't have an answer to, she's going to laugh like a hyena. And I'm sure that there'll be plenty of footage of that coming out. But they're fools. This is absolute insanity. And we've got all these wars brewing up around us. We have all of this national debt clicking away daily, rising on a daily basis. We've got our country being invaded by disgusting, heinous foreigners, which I'm going to go out. I'm going to talk to you about this. This latest Ecuadorian criminal, NYPD press conference. Let me see if it's on today. No. Because they were going to be having a press conference here about this Ecuadorian who had raped that 13-year-old girl in one of the parks in broad daylight. So I wanted to see if it was on yet. Sorry, I'm going to pull this one report up from a local New York station and go ahead and share that with you. This is so disgusting. And his neighbors recognized him from a news report, and so they caught him and called the police.
Video right now. He's identified as Christian Giovanni Landi. You can see the chest tattoo that resembles the one police were looking for after the sexual assault of a 13-year-old girl in Kissimmee Park.
It was an attack her friend says her friend was forced to witness. Eyewitness News reporter Stefan Kim has the latest. He's in Corona. Stefan?
Well, Sandra, it was a group of concerned community members here in Corona who recognized him from wanted posters. They say they noticed him he started coming here to this deli about 2 weeks ago. So last night they decided to wait for him. They knew his routine. Then around 1 a.m., the police got the call. This is a photo of the suspect obtained by Eyewitness News as he was taken into custody. Notice a distinctive tattoo on his chest, and he's missing a shoe. That's because about half a dozen Good Samaritans pounced on him and detained him for police. Among them, Jeffrey Flores, who, by the way, is not a small man. He confronted him, put him in a headlock at one point. He says that person of interest, 25-year-old Christian Giovanni Landi, tried to run, but Flores took his friend's belt and tied up his legs. Landy is accused of sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl in Casino Park last week while tying up her 13-year-old male friend's wrist to her wrist as he raped her with a machete in hand. Cops released a detailed sketch of the suspect's chest tattoo, and just last night released surveillance video of him. Landy was taken to Elmhurst Hospital to be treated for his injuries from what happened here in Corona.
I seen him walk into the store and I had to take him out. And I told everybody, yo, this is the rapist, you know. I punched him, I kicked him a little bit, I ain't gonna lie. And yeah, that's it.
What did you say to him?
Nothing, I ain't saying nothing to him. I'm always quiet when I see new people that I really don't know, you feel me? Like, I recognize he wasn't from around here. I'm like, hold up, he looks such. But I already knew it was him since he was coming down this block. I already knew it was him.
Did he say anything to you?
Nope,
Nothing at all.
he didn't see it coming.
He didn't deny it. He didn't.
He didn't deny. He was like, oh, he started yelling, help, help, help in Spanish. I'm like, yeah, that's what the little girls were saying. And you know, he didn't deny it.
Now back here live, that is Flores here sitting on a scooter. He adds that he has 2 sisters and has a daughter coming on the way, so he was not going to let this guy go. Landy, by the way, is an Ecuadorian migrant who entered the country in 2021, has been living in a men's shelter nearby here since then. He has several transit summonses since then, but nothing more. We'll, of course, have much more today coming up at First at 4.
So this is another one that has come across the border since Biden has been in office. And this was pretty disgusting. You know, this 13-year-old girl and her 13-year-old male friend, he got them both and handcuffed them together and raped this 13-year-old little girl with a machete in his hand. So, you know, nobody would do anything about it. The boy was helpless. The girl was obviously helpless. And more details are going to be coming out because I guess when I was listening to the news before I came on the podcast, they were saying that the details are pretty disgusting and that he was quite the animal. So these are the types of people that are roaming the streets in New York. I mean, this isn't the first story. This is awful. I mean, in broad daylight, this is how brazen they're becoming. They know they're not going to be held responsible for the crimes they commit. They can come here and rape our children, folks, and they'll be given a slap on the hand. This situation, I think, is going to be a little different because there's a lot of media around this. And so they got to show that they're doing something, right? But if you go to North Carolina and you go into New York, into these other areas where it's not so much a publicized or put out on media rape of a child, they're not going to keep this illegal in prison or jail. They're going to slap them on the wrist because New York is a no-bail state. They're going to let them go and give them a court date to come back and face the charges, and they'll never show up. It's just like those 3 Venezuelan gang members who got on a bus and hightailed it out to Arizona out here for crimes they had committed. I think it was in Connecticut. They know how to work the system here. And then you've got a dementia president who comes out because it's an election year and talks about this big old, oh my gosh, we're going to stop the people coming over the border and we're going to stop it at 2,500 a day. And once it goes over that for 7 days, that's it. We're closing the border down. Bullshit. Excuse my language, but bullshit. None of that has happened. None of it. It's a lie. If they get on their phones and do the CBP app, they come to a port of entry, basically illegal asylum seeker entry, show their phone app and their application or their approval, and they're waved on through by the Border Patrol. It's way more than 2,500 a day coming over this border. And I know Biden talked about these people coming over, you know, outside the ports of entry. It's way more than that. California is being inundated. Arizona is being inundated. They're not counting them. They don't care to count them because they never want to shut that spigot off. They want to keep the flow of these people coming in here. And this isn't just draining our communities financially, folks. This is draining our country and our communities of our schools and the ability of our teachers to handle the class sizes and to not have these hoodlum kind of little illegal kids coming in who have thug fathers and uncles and stuff like the ones who just raped a 13-year-old girl in broad daylight in New York. Those are the kind of kids that are coming into our school system. Our teachers beat themselves over the head trying to accommodate all these larger classroom sizes and these non-speaking students, and the increase on their ability to provide things for these kids. Because the school systems are corrupt. The public school systems are corrupt across the country. They don't give the money that is allocated to our school systems to the actual teachers to perform their duties and have a classroom that is able to provide Kleenex and pencils and pens and crayons and colored pencils to their students. Come on. How much does that cost if they're buying it in bulk? That they can't provide a Kleenex box and some pencils to a kindergartner, second grader? Are you kidding me? 50% of the state budget in Arizona goes to our public school system, and we get federal dollars on top of that. And I'm sure it's that way in many other states across this country. And teachers have to spend their salary and their money, and the community has to come together and put together school supplies for children. This is insanity. What is happening to our money? We have no clue. We not only get taxed on the money that we make, we get taxed on that money after it's been taxed. We get taxed on it as we're spending it. And of course, it gets super taxed after we die, and the money's left to our children after we've already paid double and triple taxes on it to begin with. Then you've got inheritance tax, and if somebody hasn't set up their will or their trust properly, then their children are going to have to pay out the nose when they pass on. It's because government has gotten too big and the spending has gotten out of control. How easy is it to spend somebody else's money? So you have these morons like AOC, who was a bartender, come into Congress, and they're deciding the budget and what's going to happen with the monies and how it's going to be allocated, federal tax dollars. Oh, let's give it to this organization because they need to get their feet off the ground. Let's give it to, the trans community because they need more education. They need to be able to get out there in the public and talk about it. And let's give it to the pro-Palestinian and pro-Hamas organizations so that they can cause more chaos in our communities. That's where some of your money is going, people. Not only on a federal level, but on a state level. And with the budget that was just passed here in Arizona, I've got to go through it a little deeper, but I took a screenshot of some of the most troubling things. And you know what? I can pull it up on because my phone is connected to my computer. I can pull up my pictures on my thing. So I won't have to look at my teeny weeny little phone. So this is the reality is that this is what happens when the weak Republicans negotiate a budget in secret with Democrats. This is talking about here in in Arizona. The result is that they fail to appropriate any new meaningful border security money for local sheriffs. No meaningful money, border security money for the sheriffs down on the border, folks. It's not in the budget here in Arizona. Kneecap a school choice tax credit. Regulate private faith-based schools. They're going to regulate Catholic schools, Christian schools. Weaponize public schools' ability to stop conservative teachers from providing instructions to ESA students. Impede parents' rights to educate their children as they see fit. They want to, at all means, stop the school choice situation here in Arizona. They want these kids back in the public schools. They want to be able to indoctrinate them. They want control over the children here in Arizona. the Democrats and some of these Republicans, obviously, gift hundreds of millions of your tax dollars to the healthcare industrial complex. Refuse to do anything meaningful to fix our elections. Use budget gimmicks to pretend to solve the state's deficit rather than actually solving it. Sweep $430 million of water funding intended to help solve our state's water crisis. They swept it into some other bills that they were working on. Fail to hold Hobbs accountable, Governor Hobbs accountable for her illegal pay-to-play scheme, where it was involving group homes for substance abuse. Failed to hold Mays accountable, our Attorney General Mays accountable, for weaponizing the justice system against her political opponents. Failed to hold Secretary of State Fontes accountable for his total illegal election procedures manual. The Arizona Republic quoted disgraced former legislator Rusty Bowers saying the quiet part out loud. It is not a great idea to allow lawmakers more time to analyze the budget items. The biggest problem and that's his quote, and Rusty Bowers was not a very good guy, in my opinion. So the biggest problem that exists is that government and most people in government hate you. Now, all of that list and what I just read you came from a former legislator who is finishing out their term right now, is not running for re-election, who is a Republican. So I got to get more in depth with that budget, but there were some pretty bad things that were passed. Water issues were not addressed, and they're not holding Governor Hobbs accountable for her pay to play. So I met with a group of African caregivers who invited me to come and speak at a little forum that they had, and they're caregivers for the substance abuse community. And what was going on here in Arizona is that there were some of these big places and some of these private small places that were struggling. They were driving vans up to the reservation, mainly the Navajo reservation, I believe, and some of the other reservations up north, and I think some of them down south. But they were driving vans from their facilities up there, and they would come across a drunk Indian on the reservation, and they would promise them help and load them onto their vans and drive them back down here to the valley and put them into their treatment centers. Nobody in their families knew where they were, what happened to them, how they disappeared. They didn't give any notification to their families. And so this started coming to light that this scheme was going on. So they did a little investigation. And so what does the governor do? She cuts every bit of the funding off to any and every group home that was helping substance abuse patients, alcoholics, drug addictions, those types of things. And so they can't, and the doctors that were working associated with those group homes, so that they were not able to turn their bills into Access, which is the state insurance, and get reimbursed for the services that they were being provided. She just cut off everything to everybody. Even though there's always bad players in anything, there are always good people. And this group of people that I met with, I'm hoping to have Emily, who is the one who invited me to come speak at that. I'm hoping to have her on maybe yet this week or next week. We've got to coordinate our schedules and have her kind of go over what was happening in the community. But you could tell these people really, the ones that I met with, really cared about their patients, and they were distraught over what's happening to them. And there's a couple of these really big Sunshine Acre Holdings, and it's not associated with Sunshine Acres Children's Home here in Mesa. A lot of people are getting it confused with that. Sunshine Acres Children's Home is privately funded, so they don't get any state funds or not reimbursed by Access, any of that. This is Sunshine Acres Holdings, which is these type of, it's a pretty big facility for substance abuse. And then I believe Valley del Sol is the other one that was involved. But with the pay to play scheme with the governor. And so they're all under investigation. But, you know, at the end of my mother's life, well, the last couple of years, she was at a pretty big, beautiful facility and very nice and had her own apartment and everything. But, and we paid, you know, to have extra care for her because things were getting a little rough for her. But she would sit in her room and press a button and press a button to get some help, to go to the bathroom, to do different things, to get to bed. And she would sit there for sometimes hours waiting for somebody to come in. And she got pretty sick 2 or 3 times, and it was from neglect and the care not provided for her that we were paying for. And we finally got her out of that big facility, that big, beautiful, expensive facility, and got her into a private group home closer to my home. And the care, the level of care, and my mother's happiness, and just the overall feeling in this place was unbelievable. My mother never got sick again. I mean, she died because of you know, natural causes, that she had Parkinson's and different things going on, but didn't get the illnesses that were associated with the other big place that she was at. And some of those illnesses were caused by uncleanliness. And so that made me really perk up my ears and listen to these people when I was talking to them, because, and having them tell me what was going on, because sometimes it takes a small, intimate setting in a group home and somebody who really has a heart to do that kind of work, to have the right care for your loved ones. These big, beautiful, expensive facilities, that you can't judge a book by its cover, folks, at all. And so this is what's happening in Arizona with this pay-to-play scheme. There's a lot of healthcare, substance abuse group homes, and people who were helping people in our community. They can't help them anymore. They're out of work. The people who they were treating are back out on the streets, homeless, wandering around. These big facilities, they know that they can't go around picking these people up off the streets anymore in their vans and taking them there, because there's people watching them to make sure this isn't going on. But Sunshine Acres Holdings wanted to increase their daily rate and was unable to do that because the governor wasn't giving the okay for that to happen with all these facilities. And so Sunshine Acre Holdings donated like $100,000 to her campaign, and then $200,000 to her PAC or something like that, something weird like that, large amounts. And then, oh, lo and behold, they were able to increase substantially their daily charges that Access would be reimbursing them for. So that's what Governor Hobbs is in big trouble for. And then the Attorney General is investigating it. And she's a Democrat. So, you know, it's just funny business and politics here in Arizona. We're never going to get to the bottom of anything here. And we have to pray and hope that, I mean, the legislators have, you know, finished their session. They've all gone home. And this whole budget thing was a deal that was holding them up and why they were in session so long. I mean, my goodness, June, honestly, you know, different states were done in 3 or 4 months. But it's because we allow all this garbage, and then you have all this infighting because there's never enough time for these last minute deals that come in to fill up the budget to really be read and to be understood by the legislators so that they feel that they're voting on things in the right way. And they had a huge deficit, which they needed to fix. And so this is why they were money grabbing from all these different sources here in Arizona in the budget to make up for the deficit that they created for themselves by looking for ways to spend the big surplus that we had in the last year or two. It's just crazy. But like I said, it's so much easier to spend somebody else's money, isn't it? And not really dig down and look into things like you would your personal budget, or to look into a bill and say, wait a second, they're overcharging us and they didn't provide this service for us. Where's the accountability, folks? on any money that's allocated out of our budget. And this is one thing I'm talking to my constituents about that I'm going to really work on getting done down there at the Capitol, that we've got to have more accountability of the money that comes out of our budget. There's some organizations, departments, whatever, that this money's allocated to that doesn't really have to have accountability on an annual basis. It may be 3, 4 years, 5 years down the road that there may be some questions about how the money's being spent that's being given to them. And so now we need an accountability. Well, that's been 3, 4, 5 years of the legislators giving away your money without anybody really going over it with a fine-tooth comb and making sure that the money's being spent as it was given to them to be spent. And we're finding this throughout the whole country. Fannie Willis's office, Letitia James's office. You know, when you finally start looking into some of these things and how they're spending money, it's illegal in a lot of cases. It's against the law. The money wasn't even spent as it was allocated to be spent. And I feel that if there was more accountability on an annual basis for every department and organization, everywhere where taxpayer money goes, I think that we would be pulling in a lot, reining in a lot of our spending in that way, because we would find that these places are duping the state and spending the money in ways that shouldn't be spent. Maybe it's been given to a nonprofit, educational organization because they're going to XYZ. But when we finally get in there and do some accountability and see how the money's been spent, it's been spent in a detrimental way to provide educational tools to our kids that are indoctrinating them. And nobody's been paying attention. Do you think maybe that's what happened for so long? There was no accountability and nobody paying attention, that this stuff was able to slip in the front doors of our schools? Yes. Because people don't care to follow up and be accountable and make others be accountable. We live in a world where accountability is non-existence in so many ways. Not even in a budget, but not only in a budget, but in behavior. It's a crazy world we live in. But, you know, and everybody needs to be paying attention to their state budgets and how their legislators are divvying out the money. You need to pay attention to their voting records. You need to get online to your state government office, or if there is a, like here in Arizona, there's Arizona Free Enterprise, and they provide a scorecard for all of the legislators and how they vote for the good of the citizens of that state. So if there's a free enterprise in your state, or find some other organization that does give that sort of information, that's really a good way to find out the conservatism of that legislator. How conservative are they? Is basically how they're graded. The other thing is, that thought just went out of my mind because I saw a message pop up on my screen and my mind went bing, 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 bing. You know how that is. Anyway, so I'm going to pull up a couple of articles. I like to do this at the end of the show because I don't know. I just don't think enough people are tuned into what is happening around us, crime-wise, when it comes to illegals. Alrighty, let me see what this one is. Some of these are Twitter or Instagram, and I can't see it until that's not what I wanted to show you. Just there's a lot of crime happening around here. I mean, I could go back for days because, of course, we haven't had a podcast since Thursday. So, of course, you've all heard over the weekend about the arrest made in the murder of Rachel Morin in Maryland. She's a mom of 5, an illegal immigrant from El Salvador, is charged in her rape and murder. Here he is. So he was found finally. The 23-year-old illegal crossed into the U.S. in February of 2023, and we suspect that Rachel was not his first victim. It is my understanding that this suspect, this monster, fled to the United States illegally after committing the brutal murder of a young woman in El Salvador a month earlier in January of 2023. So he had killed somebody in 2023, came to the United States in February of 2023, and then his DNA match was from a Los Angeles attack in March of 2023. So he killed somebody in El Salvador in January 2023, raped and killed somebody in Maryland in February of 2023, and then attacked somebody in March of 2023 in Los Angeles. So he's going all across the country, right? And I don't know if the case I think the one in California was just a rape, home invasion type thing. I don't think it was a murder. But anyway, these are the types of wonderful people that Biden just thinks deserves to be here. And of course, he's working to provide amnesty for all of these people. Let me see. I'm sorry. Trying to pull up the right article. There's another illegal arrested in Norfolk, Virginia, an attack at a nightclub, runaway migrants and guns in schools. So this article, and I'm not going to show it because it's pretty long, but this article was talking about how these young girls are put into homes, basically sponsor homes, and that they're running away and they don't know where these girls are. And it's in the thousands. And of course, they're teenage girls. So of course, you know what's going on with all that stuff, right? They are definitely ending up in the sex trade or sex trafficking. Let me see. So a semi driver, I'll share this one with you. It's one of those articles where I think all these ads are flashing around now. So a semi driver arrested in a fatal Highway 287 crash had been removed from the U.S. multiple times. He was arrested after his truck went off the road and dumped its load of pipe and angle iron on top of 5 other vehicles. This was just June 17th in Conifer, Colorado. So he does not have proper documentation and had previously been removed from the country multiple times. And so he was arrested with vehicular homicide and vehicular assault charges after the crash on Highway 287. He, now mind you, if let me see, he's a citizen of Mexico, and ICE first became aware of him when he was arrested on local charges in Oregon of April 2002. On May 2002, an immigration judge in Oregon ordered that he be removed to Mexico. And since then, he has been removed from the United States or has voluntarily returned to Mexico 16 times. He was arrested in Oregon in 2022 for a low-level drug trafficking offense. His punishment was 10 days in jail and 18 months probation. Anyway, this is why it's important to have the E-Verify, because there's no way that you can know when somebody comes in and oh yeah, I have truck driving experience, whatever, and may have a CDC license, whatever, whatever it's called. Maybe it's not CDC, but they hire him on the spot because they need guys to do these long hauls with all these big semis. But without E-Verify in place, you're never going to know that you're hiring somebody who's been deported 6 times, who's been on ICE's radar, who was ordered deported from this country by a judge, who was convicted of selling drugs and spent some time in jail and had some probation. You're not going to know any of this stuff if you just nilly-willy hire anybody and everybody who walks through your front door. And in the USA Today, you definitely need to have E-Verify because there's no way to know who's here. You don't know who these people are. Border Patrol doesn't even know who they are, and they're letting them over the border at the direction of the Biden and Mayorkas regime. So this is why it's important for E-Verify. This is why every state should have it. And of course, Colorado's a liberal state. They're not going to want any of this kind of stuff in place. They're all about welcoming the illegals. But what they are doing, what Colorado is doing, is transporting some of these illegals from Colorado because Denver was so inundated, transporting a bunch of them over to Utah and dumping them there, letting them become Utah's problem. What if these illegals had family in Denver? Shouldn't you be keeping them there? Isn't what they want the most important thing? Now, this is something that I have been fighting for a very, very long time. And I brought it up during the Trump administration and talked about it at some of the congressional hearings. 12 years of DACA, 68,000 illegal aliens awarded DACA despite prior arrests. Now, when this was first put together, folks, when DACA was first put together under the Obama administration, it was a really, quickly, get it done. Yeah. Get all these kids in here. We're gonna keep them safe. Then, it said in the original setting up of this that these DACA participants, these dreamers, could have up to 3 misdemeanor crimes on their record before they would be deported. They didn't even do any background checks on these kids when they let them become a part of the DACA program. Mistake number 1. And then, so they're participating in this Dreamer program, deferred action program, and sorry, I have so much drainage today. And they've got misdemeanors. Some of them even have felonies, folks. Some of them had murder, rape, gun charges, assault charges. And some of them, after the fact, after they were accepted into the program, committed felonies. But what was happening in the courts for these dreamers was the attorneys were all making backroom deals with the judges and reducing the felonies to misdemeanors, because their attorneys, the dreamer attorneys, would go in and say, if we can't reduce this felony to a misdemeanor, they're going to be deported because it's against the DACA program. And so we got to get this reduced to a misdemeanor. And so everybody agreed to it. So here these dreamers are committing felony crimes in our country, and they're reduced to misdemeanors and given slaps on the wrist and just released back out into our community. This is how lenient the government has been for decades, folks, with these illegal criminals. And these are the kinds of situations and stories I've been trying to bring to people's mind so that you understand how dangerous these people can be. Yes, the majority of them are good people. I get that. But when you've got the percentage of these bad players and the high percentage of these bad players who are coming over our borders now, present day, for the past 3.5 years, flooding our country, and it's not only criminal illegals. It's terrorists. Terrorists, folks, who want to kill us, who are out to kill as many Americans as they can. And believe me, it's being planned on a daily basis from these bad players that the Biden administration has led over our borders. Some of these plans may be thwarted. Some of them aren't going to be. There's going to be repercussions. There's going to be collateral damage. And as we all know, as Angel families know, because we've gone into Congress and testified at committee hearings and whatnot, and told the members, our children and our loved ones were just collateral damage for your agenda. And they just shrug their shoulders. It's just like, okay. Anyway, I have gone way beyond my time. I apologize, but I get pretty passionate about some of this stuff. And I will be back tomorrow. I'm working on getting some guests on the show. Oh, this little girl knows exactly when I'm signing off, but I'm hoping to get some guests on the show so that we can have some conversations about some issues tonight. And so thank you for joining me today, and I will see you all tomorrow.